Is your system low on refrigerant or Freon? We're going to talk about your options right now. Joshua Griffin here, serving the Middle Peninsula and the Northern Neck of Virginia, and I want to do a video about probably one of the most common problems and calls that we get as a company, what your options are, and what the good and bad of each of those options are. No one option makes sense for all situations, in my opinion. So let's get into it. If your system is low on refrigerant, or if you think it is, we get folks that call all the time and they say, well, I think my system's low on refrigerant, and sometimes it's not. They think it is, but maybe it's not. And so I wanted to kind of go through, at Griffin Air, we give you 4 options typically to remedying your issue. And again, not every option makes sense in every situation. So let's kind of go through those. You can see our HR manager, Boomer, back in the back today. We're sitting in the truck right now. So anyway, option number 1. Option number 1 is what we would call a gas and go, or top them off, or I've heard different terms used for it. But if your system's low on refrigerant, this would be basically where they would add the refrigerant, and then that's it. Nothing else is done. And, so let's kind of go through that. What's the good and the bad of that? Well, if the system has, for me personally, if I've never laid hands on a system and it's just a little low, that might be the best option. Just add a pound or 2 of refrigerant, do a proper either subcool or superheat measurement, make sure it's where it's supposed to be, running efficiently. Of course, the system needs to be clean, and the air filters need to be clean and all that good stuff, making sure that it's got proper airflow. And maybe that option makes sense. Now, what's the bad for that option? Well, if you've got a system that it's been a problem child. You've been having to add refrigerant to it often. Seems like, you've done it more than once, and, it just keeps being a problem child. Well, that's not a very good option. In fact, the EPA says by law, heating and air technicians, if they know a system has a leak and it's a significant leak, we have to attempt to repair in some way, shape, or form. We're not allowed to just continue to dump refrigerant into a system. So again, so that option may make sense. It just depends. If a system's still under warranty, let's say a system's newer and it's only been in, say, 6 months. It was installed in one season and now it's another. Maybe just adding a little bit of refrigerant to get the pressures right. Maybe, in the wintertime, they couldn't do a subcool measurement to get it perfect. They went by the chart that comes from the manufacturer and got it as close as they could, and so on. So that would be option 1, and, it may make sense. Option 2 is doing the same thing, adding the refrigerant and getting it up to where it needs to be, and then adding a product to the system such as Leak Seal. There's different brands. Leak Seal's an actual product made by New Calgon, but adding some sort of something to stop the leak to the system. It's sort of like fix a flat for a tire, and where it would, hopefully the hope and dream is that it would get into the system, find the leak, and stop the leak. Now, here's the thing with that. First of all, especially when it first came out, when these types of products first came out, there was an issue where some of the manufacturers and even heating and air contractors were claiming, and some still claim, that it will gum up the system, it'll make the compressor fail, and things like that. And I'm not going to get into whether that is or isn't true. I think that that's a whole nother topic, whether some products do or don't, do that, and so on. But let's just talk for a moment about the thought process behind the product itself. Well, first of all, if it's a significant leak, so if you're having to add refrigerant to that system 2-3 plus pounds every couple of months, is not going to work. Whether it is or isn't a good product, it will not work. It's too big of a leak. Just like fix a flat for a tire, it's just not going to work. I've done it a few times, and I can tell you, it's just not going to fix the leak. It's too big of a leak. The second thing to consider is, because of what I just mentioned about, some of the past issues and some of the thought processes behind it, or what it can do to your system, most manufacturers will void warranty if they know that you put a product like that into the system. In fact, most of the manufacturers don't even want you to put any additives to the system. So even a product, say like AC Renew, which just is it's a sort of lubricant and oil that would be added to the system to make the compressor more efficient and quieter. They don't even want that in there if it's still under warranty. They don't want anything. They want just straight refrigerant and what they have designed for the system. So that's another thing. If it's still under warranty, option 2 does not make sense for your problem. Lastly, when would I personally offer that option? Well, if I have a customer, system is older, 15 plus years old, they're just trying to get another year or two out of the system. They've had to add refrigerant to it before, but it's been a year or two. It's not a huge leak, but they're looking for just, a solution to kind of get them through, get another year or two out of that system. Option 2 might make sense. So that's that. The third option, option 3. Option 3 would be trying to find the leak and repairing it, and then recharging the system back up properly. So now this would probably seem to make sense. If there's a leak, find it, repair it, and then go from there. And if a system is under warranty, I think option 3 is the only option. So let me say that. If its system is still under warranty, option 3 is the only option. Attempt to find the leak, repair it, make the system, right, and then go from there. Couple things with option 3 though. The first thing is, if it's a smaller leak, and I'm sure some other heating and air guys would argue with me on this, I can find any leak. If it's a smaller leak, you may not find it. With the best tools in the world, sniffers, even a nitrogen pressure test, things like that, you may not find it. I mean, it's just possible, okay? That's the first thing. The second thing is, if the technician finds the leak, there's no guarantee that they're going to be able to repair it. So let's say the leak is in the coil. Most times, if it's in the evaporator coil, you're going to replace that entire evaporator coil. You're not going to attempt to repair that. So now, why does that matter? You say, well, of course you would. Well, the reason that would matter is if you have an older system and you're just, again, getting back to that, well, I'm just trying to get a year or two more out of this system. You may not want to put that kind of money into a system that's, got some age, 15 plus years old, and it's leaking refrigerant, and now you just found out that you're gonna have to replace the coil, and then of course pay for the refrigerant and all that stuff. It could be, an expensive repair. So last thing I'll mention about option 3, and this isn't a deal breaker, I just want you to be aware, and that is option 3, unlike all of the other options, is an option that you may select but not stay with. Okay, so what I mean by that is, let's say you select option 3 and then the technician, they take the time and the materials, whichever process they use to find the leak, and they find the leak. Well, let's just say you decide after they find the leak that you're going to replace the system. We're going to get into that in a second. That's actually option 4. Well, you still have to pay for option 3. You just pay. A technician just took the time, the material. So if they did a pressure test, nitrogen, if they did their sniffer or whatever process they used to find the leak, you may have to pay to have that option performed, if that makes sense. So I just want you to be aware of that. So just keep that in mind. So last option, option 4. Option 4 is replacing the system. You might say, well, I always feel like, the company that I use is going with option 4 every time. And that may be true, but just realize sometimes option 4 does make the most sense, because, and there's videos you can look up about this. When you figure up the cost of, doing the repair or one of the other options, and then if you did go with option 1 and it doesn't work, or 2 and it doesn't work, and then the company's back out there a couple months later or a year later or whatever, once you start adding up the costs and the cost of an inefficient system and all of those things, sometimes a brand new system with the peace of mind and the warranty might make sense. The last thing I'll say about all of this, and the whole reason I even did this video, is there are companies that will push you into one of those options without actually letting you consider your options, if you will. So I've heard of other, I've had customers that we've been to their home and they say, well, man, nobody's ever laid it out quite like you just did, giving me these options and deciding which one makes the most sense. I'm going to let you make the option. I'm not going to push you to option 4 or option 1 or whatever. I'm going to tell you which one I think makes the most sense, and that's and it's never the same one. Every house, every situation's different. But there are times where heating and air technicians will just up and do option 1. They'll just do a gas and go, top it off and go on to their next call. And it doesn't give folks the warm fuzzies. So the whole point of that, and the reason I want to do this video is, there's multiple options, and you should consider in your situation which option makes the most sense. Again, there's good and bad of each option, and just from a saving money standpoint in the long run, one option might make more sense than the others. If you have any questions, we'd love to earn your business. Give us a call, 804-505-0247.